NJ.com and the Heldridge Hotel. Welcome to the Rutgers Rant, your one-stop podcast for the Scarlet Knights, with your host, Steve Politi, and Rutgers insider Brian Fonseca. Let's start shopping.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to the Rutgers Rant. Politi here, Fonseca, back from Chicago. Hopefully our audio is better this week. We apologize. It might not be great this week, but it should be better, we hope. We got a lot to talk about, so it better be good. Got a Big Ten tournament to wrap up, season to wrap up. We're going to do our Keep 'em, Lose 'em segment, one of my favorites with college basketball now these days, as if, it's almost impossible to predict. Everyone's in the portal at all times. I'm in the portal. You're in the portal. How you doing? Good trip to Chicago?
It was a quick one. I was a bit worried when I was changing my flight Wednesday night to Thursday after Rutgers won that I would have to pay $1,000 in change fees. Ooh. But I thankfully found a flight that was for free changing, so I didn't bankrupt NJ.com to the chagrin of many, I'm sure. But we are all good, and I am back. And maybe, Steve, I don't know how good of a show this will be, but maybe we'll have some fireworks.
Oh, I'm going to have to talk about the fireworks. I love it when you step on a landmine, a little social media bomb that you didn't see coming. That's some great stuff. Yeah.
One day you're on the waiting for the train, taking lovely Chicago public transport with the people. You just ate a Chicago hot dog. The sport peppers are flowing through your veins. You're feeling good. You see a story in a newsletter that you follow that involves the team you cover, and you say, "This is an interesting, quirky little note to throw out there." So you tweet it out, and then next thing you know, you're getting assaulted on Twitter.
Everyone lines up to punch you in the face. That's the best. That's the best thing. You were the worst person on Twitter for like 15 minutes. It was great. I want to punch you in the face, and I knew you didn't do anything wrong. It's perfect.
It's no different than usual, and I don't blame him. I don't blame anybody for wanting to punch me in the face. So.
If you might as well start with this, because people who aren't online, and if you're not, congratulations, you're living life the right way. But if you were online, Brian stumbled upon what was an interesting tweet about how Rutgers spent more than any Power 4 conference team on fireworks. Is that what it was? That was the tweet, like significantly more. And
which, to be clear, that has since been surpassed. There was new reporting this morning. Ole Miss surpassed Rutgers, but as of printing yesterday, Rutgers spent $44,000 more in fireworks than other Power 4 football programs, according to the report that I did not write. Okay. I want to empathize this. I did not write the report. I just tweeted out the information.
I'm going to write a column now that this cannot stand. You got to let Ole Miss beat us in fireworks here in New Jersey. I mean, give me a break. Come on, man. That's unacceptable. That's my takeaway. Like, this is something that the Rutgers should absolutely embrace. Like, we've got the most. You should put a sign up. And now at halftime, the most expensive fireworks show in college football. I mean, they should have put it. This is great. Of course, it's a great show. We got drones. I want drones that shoot fireworks. No. I want fireworks that shoot drones. That's what I want. How much does that cost? Get the engineering school here. That's I don't know what the controversy is. I like it. More money on the fireworks, less money on other stuff. That would be what my takeaway is.
Well, what I want to say is I don't think there is a controversy. There was a contrived controversy, I think, because I didn't say anything was good or bad. I literally just said, this is what the reporting says. And the people
I saw online.
Well, I think reflexively, and I don't blame people for doing so, thought, okay, well, they write financial stories all the time. They just wrote a story about how Rutgers wrote $500 million. So they're rubbing it in with this fireworks. I literally just thought that it was an interesting stat. And I think the fireworks is good. People might not believe that. I mean, people automatically thought I was trying to
fireworks. We dug up digging up old tweets where you said the fireworks weren't good enough from 2013. That was my favorite part.
Yes, that was the Carnegie 4th of July. We might be Soccer Town USA. We're not Firework USA.
And then Kelly Zinn came off the top rope too. Like, she was like, this. She made sure that and then the guy who wrote the story came back at her with the receipt, which is proof that she shouldn't be picking internet tweet fights either. Someone should take the phone from her hand. Everyone lost. Everyone who tweeted. And it's a good lesson for the world. Don't tweet. Like, everyone who got involved in this was a loser. Congratulations.
Nobody's life is better for having tweeted. That has never happened in the history of all time. Yes, look, it is what it is. I think ultimately what comes out of this is Kelly Zinn wins a significant win for the Rutgers fan base, who there are a large swaths of them who hate our guts, and for them to see their athletic director come at one of us is very refreshing for them. And I listen, I think she earned some political points there. Mm-hmm. I hold nothing against her for doing that. I think, frankly, it might have been the smart thing to do. And next time there's a fireworks show at Rutgers, I will stand up in the press. No, I will go outside into the stands and I will clap it up to show clearly that I'm a big fan of the fireworks.
Fan of the fireworks. All right. Enough on that. Although it was very funny if you were online last night. It was great. Meanwhile, there was a basketball game last night. Not a good one for Rutgers. A loss to UCLA, ending their season probably, we think. But the Big Ten wrap up 1-1. They beat Minnesota, which was a good performance given what happened last time they played Minnesota. Lost to UCLA. I don't know. Like, I go back and forth on this. I will say that there's no doubt in my mind, in my opinion, the team improved. Like, I don't think you can argue, and I get it, the competition wasn't as good sometimes, but based on what I was watching in November, December, even early on in January, like, the team is better than they were, certainly defensively, certainly a handful of important players got much better. Lino Mark, Darren Buchanan. Like, I could make a list. Like, there was a rotation at the end of the season that wasn't there early on. It took too long. It took a lot of months. But, if you were just analyzing that very thing, Brian, are you going to disagree?
Well, I do think it is worth not discounting, how much easier the schedule got, right? And it's also worth noting that Rutgers had the 15th hardest schedule in the Big Ten, according to Bart Torvik. So they did get some lucky breaks in playing Maryland and Penn State twice, and doing so in the last month of the season, right? Which coincides with them winning 5 of their last 8 games. That being said, there is, material proof that Rutgers did improve from the start of the season to not. From the start of the season to Valentine's Day, Rutgers was 167th nationally in Bart Torvik's, rankings or whatever, the analytic thing that he uses. I don't know if it has a particular word, the Barth algorithm. Whereas from Valentine's Day on, Rutgers is the 66th best team in the country. Not lighting the world on fire, but 100 spots better. I think, to your point, clear development in Lino Mark, even a little bit of development in Emmanuel Bole. I know we rag on the guy a lot. He looked pretty good the last 2 games. Doesn't sound like he'll play any more games as a Scarlet Knight, but we'll get to that later. Harun Zerno had a couple of nice games down the stretch. So yes, I think there was some development, but you'd expect that from a program that's a developmental program. And I think naturally it would be a bad sign if they didn't get better because A, there was a lot of room to grow. B, the competition did lighten up, and C, this is what this program has to do. So if they had given up in January, I think it'd be very, very bleak.
Yeah. One thing I'm not ready to say they exceeded there's a narrative like some people picking them to win 0 games. I don't know who. I don't think they're going to win 0 games. I picked them to go 13-19. They went 14-19. I feel like it seems like it meets expectations on the old review here.
We did have the debate when they had lost their first 5, I think, if whether they were going to win one or not, right? So in fairness,
but it's a podcast. We talk about we just talked 5 minutes about fireworks. Of course, there's this just conversations you have when they look bad. It did look bad.
It did look bad. Yes, to your point, if you look back on our preseason expectations, this was roughly what we expected. I think I said 5 wins. You might have said, like you said, 6 wins. And yes, myself and pretty much the entire Big Ten media contingent picked them to finish 17th. But picking places is kind of fickle, right? Just Rutgers could win 6 games and finish 17th, or they could win 6 games and finish 14th like they did, right? It depends on other teams. I think Rutgers just about met expectations, I would say, right?
Yeah, I think they met. If you want to say they exceeded, it was very you had very low expectations, right? And I think that's okay. It's okay. I feel this way a lot, and I say this a lot, but let's not. These are professional basketball players, professional coach. I don't think they want people saying, "Hey, great job, you went 7-14." I don't.
I think they do.
They do. I don't know.
I think they do.
They do not. Do they really?
I really think they do. I think some of them really do.
Some of them do. Some people do. I think most people don't. I hope.
Okay. You would hope. You would hope.
Funny, I wasn't there, but tell me about the funny post-game stuff I saw. My favorite post-game moment, and this is, Steve Peichel, who at the end of the Big Ten tournament last year, I was there for that one. Before I think we asked the question, certainly early in the press conference, volunteered like I gotta bring my whole staff back. I bring my staff back. We got to get these guys. People are always coming from my staff. Like he made this so the season had ended 3 minutes earlier. You're at the podium. First thing he says, last night you asked him the question, Steve, you got to bring your staff back, and it's whoa, the season just ended 3 minutes ago, Brian. I laughed out loud when I saw that. It's like, what? Wait, Steve, last year we didn't even ask you. You volunteered it. This year we're asking. That just cracked me up. I love it.
So I watched back the presser actually to make sure the context, right? And it was you asking him, Steve, what's next after a season like this?
Oh, there was a question involved. That's good to know. All right.
Well, it was a question, a very general question about where do you go from here? And one of the first things he said in answer to that question was keeping the staff intact, right? So obviously that was a big storyline. This going into this offseason, this is their third straight losing season, and they've had essentially the same staff for that entire time, barring Jay Young being added last year. I followed. I didn't ask him at the press conference because I wanted to reward myself for flying out to Chicago and try to get an exclusive one-on-one answer there. So I followed the Rutgers contingent to the locker room. I asked to get Steve Peichel one-on-one for a bit, and I did. And my first question to him was, Steve, you've talked about evaluating everything this offseason in regards to staff changes. And before I could even finish my question, he goes, whoa, 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 whoa. Or he says, yo, 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 yo. I couldn't really tell, so I went with the whoa, 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 whoa. But essentially, he cuts me off and says, the season just ended 5 minutes ago. Now, how could one interpret that? I saw some people say fairly, what else is he going to say? I mean, last year he was pretty emphatic that he was going to bring them back. The other thing is, last year he volunteered that. This year I had to ask him about it. Does that mean that there will be reverse results? I don't know. It's probably a fool's errand to try to read into this stuff.
Last year he didn't have a boss. This year he does. I don't know. Yeah, I think. Yeah.
Right. Now, I will say that he was saying, every year someone tries to poach my staff. He said something similar, and he asks himself, will I be able to keep them? I don't know. And then I responded, well, Steve, the question is, do you want to keep them? And he said, I would love to. Yeah. So if it's up to him, it sounds like he'll bring them back. I don't know. We asked Kelly Zinn her take on how she would approach the situation. Does that seem like she would force him to? The other scenario is that he would have guys leave, right? We had all thought tonight maybe would be a candidate for the Pitt job. The Pitt job is not opening. Jeff Capel is staying, according to very recent reporting as of half an hour.
Is that right? Wow, I missed that completely. Holy cow.
Yes, You're not on our Discord. Jeff Capel is coming back, so it seems unlikely that he got Peichel. I guess Pitt got Peichel. He had an enormous buyout, and they couldn't justify firing him. I think his is $15 million. So it seems unlikely that Brandon Knight would leave. If he wants to leave for head coaching job, there's no buyout on his end. So there is that, but I just don't know if that will come up. As for everyone else, I don't know if there will be another coach leaving voluntarily. So it's going to be a big question of what's going to happen. I will say, though, I guess we'll set the over-under here on half a coach leaving or not. I cannot imagine they roll back into the exact same staff. I can't.
Impossible. Can't do it. I would be stunned. Totally stunned. I guess stunned is a big word. I'd be surprised. I think there'll be some changes. Certainly some changes to the roster. We know that. We're going to talk about that in a minute. The other big issue, it certainly does not look likely Rutgers will play another game. The crown is basically out of the question. NIT, I didn't realize this until you pointed out your story this morning. 32 teams, and none of them were for the Big Ten last year. So that seems very unlikely. What was the vibe when you asked that question?
He said, I have not thought about it. He said I should ask Kelly, and I tried to find Kelly to ask her, but she had already left the building by the time I left the Rutgers locker room. Right. And based on the tweet from earlier in the day about the fireworks, I don't think she would particularly be interested in answering my question. But anyway, so the way the college basketball crown is probably 2% chance, right? Because you would need 3 other teams that are ahead of them, or 4 other teams that are ahead of them in the stands. I have I had it in my story.
Don't type. When you type, it rattles the entire microphone. It's okay. 4 other teams ahead of them.
It's Indiana, Washington, USC, Minnesota, Oregon. That's 5 teams that would have to decline the crown before it comes to Rutgers if they go by the net. Now, the important thing to note here is that if you decline an invite to the Crown, you are not allowed to go to the NIT. So if Rutgers does get the invitation to the Crown, it's essentially Crown or bust. If it doesn't get to Rutgers, in theory, they could get invited to the NIT. Now, all this is moot because Rutgers has to still accept the bid, right? They didn't last year. Maybe a little different circumstances this year with a lot of, a lot of players that could come. Essentially, the entire roster could come back. But is it worth it? I'm not sure if you want to keep the team together for another 3 weeks, if they're going to be motivated to practice and then play in a tournament at the start of April. That, I guess, at least for the Crown, there is some NIL component to it to motivate them, but I just don't know if it's worthwhile for the program at all to play a postseason.
NIT feels like a dying thing, but well, we'll find out. Doesn't look likely. All right, so let's do the breakdown. You had a good breakdown. Your story this morning of which players are coming back. I disagreed with a lot of them, so it should be a fun discussion. This is how I want to do it. I want to go player by player, and I put them in order, my order of priority. And this is going to be fun too, because when a player comes up, you can go, "Wow, wait a minute," and you can tell me if that was the wrong order. But I want to do this. I wanted to keep them. I want to keep them at what price? Not obviously we don't know the prices, but generally speaking, and then will he stay? Because I think we're a lot of this conversation we're basing on whether or not Rutgers wants them back, and forgetting that in a lot of cases this is not a decision that Rutgers is going to make. It's going to be made for them. So let's do it. Starting with the most important player to bring back. Brian knows where I'm going with this. His eyebrows are raising. Tariq Francis. He's not moving. He might. Do you agree with me?
Listen, I think at worst he'd be the second most important player to bring back. No doubt about that. I think Marcus may be in the discussion there, but I certainly think. I honestly kind of agree with you. I think he's the most important player to bring back.
Okay.
Now, what we might disagree is the role he would play if he does come back.
I just think, and it's on our Discord. It's been I've seen it a couple places that there is some wishful thinking at best, just borderline craziness at worst, and the idea that Rutgers is going to replace all 5 of its starters in the portal. I think that's just silly. It's just not going to happen. They don't have the ability. They will not have the money. Players want to go elsewhere. It defeats the whole idea of the Steve Pikiell's got to bring his core back. They're talking about it on TV, like they'll be in the NCAA tournament. They just keep their kids. It was the entire narrative Big Ten tournament. That's all they talked about. So I think they've got to keep some guys back. I think Tariq Francis has proven us wrong. He is a Big Ten starter. He is he can score in the Big Ten. Didn't have a great game in UCLA. I realize there are limitations there, but the point I tried to make to people is that this is what you're seeing a Tariq Francis on a team that does not have another scorer. So what happens if they do go in the portal and get a couple guys who can, score the ball? Then I think, he might get more efficient. The jump he took from last year to this year is significant in every statistical category. Shots down, shooting percentage up, points per possession up, everything. He's a good player. He's a good basketball player. And I think you're going to bring him back and you're going to pay him to bring him back as well.
I don't disagree with all of what you said, but I will push back on a few things. Seton Hall replaced its entire starting lineup on a team that admittedly was worse than this Rutgers team, but not by much, and they got significantly better. And Seton Hall did not have a huge wallet budget to do that with, right? So I disagree that you have to have this outstanding budget to be able to do that. I think it's feasible, and in some cases like this one, I think it might be better than bringing a bunch of guys back. The BTN guys talked about that because they have nothing else to talk about, right? That is the only straw for people to grasp on if they want hope looking to the future, is it not? Right.
It's true. Seton Hall plays in the Big East, and it was really a bad team. Let's be honest. Far worse. Just keep that in mind. Okay.
I think they have 20 wins though, right? And they went to Maui.
But this team's good. Like last year's team. I mean, they play in the big. I think just a different scenario. But I understand what you're saying. It is possible. I just do not think it is likely for this program, this coach, the money I'm hearing, the situation, and when you have it's not it's a decent building block. Like Tariq Francis is a good basketball player. I think they would want to keep him. I think he represented the university well. I think he's developing. He's good. Like I think that they should keep him for continuity. It'll just be easier than going into the portal and trying to build an entire team.
We agree here that they should bring back Tariq Francis. We agree here that it's very likely. One, based on what he said yesterday. Two, based on the fact Brandon Knight is probably staying put.
Yep.
And the only reason I would see Tariq Francis leaving is if Brandon Knight gets another job, particularly the pit job. So we agree there. I think Tariq Francis should play a role next year. I agree he's gotten better. He's been much better than I anticipated he would be. He still is taking a large amount of shots. In 3 years in college, he has, and I apologize if you hear my clicking, he has taken 31.9% of his team shots this year, 36.9% of his shots last year, and 32.3% of the shots the year before.
Whose fault is that? Whose fault is that?
Well, I understand. The point being that he was playing on 3 bad teams. Can he be a player with lower usage? Like, is he going to be able to contribute the same way if he isn't the one guy on the team that can score? That is a fair question.
Yep.
So I can hear your argument that he should come back and be the starter, be the face of the team. I don't think that's an outrageous claim to make. I think, though, Rutgers would be in a better position if it can get to a point where it gets a better player, 2 better players at guard to start, and he comes off the bench as this microwave scorer, a third guy, and adds something. Obviously, that would be a best-case scenario. You raise a fair point that both under this coach and under the financial restrictions they have, they don't have Michigan's budget. I don't know if it's possible that they can fill all of that and bring back Tariq Francis, right? Yeah. So that's the other part of this. Yeah. But I think we agree here that they should bring back Tariq Francis, and he should take a decent amount of shots next year. We're just differing on the role he'll play.
Right. I'm going to put the money for he's going to get about $750, and I'm going to put the percentage that he's staying at 80. Over under on both those numbers.
I'll probably go over on both. I'll probably go slightly over 800,000 probably. So I've seen people say they need to pay him $1 million. I don't know if that's the case. I don't. If you have $10 million at best and you're spending 10% of your budget on Tariq Francis, no offense to Tariq Francis, good player, great kid. No offense to him. I think you're paying for a losing basketball team. I just don't. Okay. You're putting yourself in a bad spot. So 800,000 sounds right to me, and I would probably put it at 95%. I would be pretty surprised if he left.
Yep. Next important player to keep, Lino Mark. And his quote was not like Tariq Francis' quote in the locker room was like, "Yeah, I'm committed to Rutgers. I'm coming back." Quote from Lino Mark: "Season just ended, so I haven't thought about that. But one thing for sure, I love playing for Pikel. Since day one, he always believed in me. Like that's a good pivot if you're someone who's not sure you're coming back, which is kind of the vibe I've gotten from him from the beginning. I mean, and it's so funny they're playing Southern Cal. The other time I'm thinking like, is he auditioning for his next coach? I mean, not Southern Cal, playing UCLA. Like is Mick Cronin looking at him like, all right, get him on like him. He'd be my 8th man. He'd be great here. Southern California guy already, like a guy, that's a tricky one. I think they should pay him. I think they should keep him. I think they should make him a priority. I'm going to go at the same price I had for Tariq Francis, but I'm putting the number that he will stay at 25%.
I think probably a little less money, right? Because he would play a smaller role than Tariq Francis on this team, I would think. I would probably say a little higher, maybe 33%, but not much higher.
Right.
I think his quote was partially like coached, right? I think a couple of players I talked to pivoted to the "I love Rutgers, I love Steve Pikel,"
right?
All that stuff. That was this is the 3rd or 4th year that this question is asked in the postgame locker. I think they finally found their groove and realized that you can't really give a definitive answer unless you've essentially agreed to come back, right? Yeah. So I would say it's important for Rutgers to bring him back. He would be a great guard off the bench. He has shown tremendous signs in the last month of being a guy, the next guard that Steve Pikel develops from a raw prospect into a good Big Ten player. The question is, does he want to stay and continue to develop off the bench? And does he think that he can get more money if he goes into the open market, which if he shows people the stats from the last month of the year, I think it's a good case. Also, does he want to go back closer to home? As you said, he is from the West Coast. He played that down when I asked him about it, but I think there is something to be said about living across the country.
Yeah. This is a tough one. And it's a shame. And I don't know if it'd be interesting to see what happens, if you assume Rob Sullivan's the one who's kind of managing that money and the cap, like, do you overpay him? I don't think you can do that. So it's tricky. I think that's what they've did with some, like, KJ Duff in football. Like, we're not letting you go. Like, we're gonna be the biggest offer for you. They can't do that with Mark, just what they need, the other needs on this team. So I think you might have seen the last of him in a Rutgers uniform if I had to predict. But yeah.
It would be a pleasant surprise for Rutgers if he's back next year. Yeah.
All right, Darren Buchanan is next for me, and I was not on Team Buchanan early on. I kind of like, what does he do well? I came around on him, and I think I just liked the fact that he was a guy you could throw into a lot of situations. Not the best player in any of them, but a useful player. Had some guts. I like the block at the end of that, to win the game. Rebounded okay, defended okay. Like, I don't know. I just think there's a place on a better basketball team for him. Experienced player. I'm not going to pay him a lot. I'm going to try to pay him $500,000. And I'm going to go the percentage of him back high. I think like he might be the most likely player to come back. Going to go 85%.
I would make him the second most likely behind Tariq Francis. Tariq Francis has the most reason to be back.
Yep.
I agree with your points. I think Rutgers should want him back if A, to your point, he takes a reasonably low salary, $500,000, and B, is willing to come off the bench.
Yeah.
Right. I think he has to be a role player in that way. He can fill in, like you said, a kind of a jack of all trades, fill in at small ball center if they need, fill in at forward, and add the energy off the bench or whatever. He's a Peichel player, and I think he's the kind of player Steve Peichel has built his program off of, and I think it would be positive for Rutgers if he's back, but he cannot be a regular starter like he was this year.
Right. Dylan Grant is next on this list, and it's funny because I think he was probably the most disappointing player in this team, which is unfair. I understand, developmental guy. He was sick for a while. He just and even in that game against UCLA, I found myself, get him off the floor. Like, I just kept on feeling like that. If you're not gonna, it's the effort thing. It's just, basketball IQ stuff that he's missing. He didn't hit his shot as much. He wasn't demanding a role in the offense. He got a little better in the second half, but early on I was like, man, he is a net negative right now. So I would, if he wants to stay and he wants to stay for a lower number and fight for a position and develop, I'd keep him, but I think this is one of those situations where it is a best for both sides if he moves on. That used to be how it worked in college basketball. Like a guy, hey, this might be a change of scenery player. And I think he can still be a power, forward. I think he can still be ACC level kind of guy too. I don't think he's not going to have to trade down to the MAC. I think he's a guy who can play. He's got the talent to play at this level. So, my percentage of him staying is 15%.
I'd probably 15, 25%, somewhere in that range. I agree with you that it would just make most sense for both parties to part ways. I could see him totally being above average Atlantic 10 player, similar to the Derek Simpson route. Right. And I agree. Some of the disappointment is unfair because of the outsized expectations in hindsight, but yesterday was one of the more brutal games I've seen from a Rutgers player. Just he had a rough day, and I think that kind of encapsulated what was a rough winter.
Yeah. All right. The next guy to keep, Kadeem Powers. Again, talented.
Caden Powers.
What did I say? Kadeem. I'm sorry.
Kadeem Jack.
Kadeem Jack. Apologize, Caden. Caden Powers. And again, he's a talented guy, freshman, upside. I think Lino kind of took, I thought he was the guy to keep early on. I think Lino kind of stepped into that role clearly by the end of the season. That doesn't mean I want to give up on him. But this is another one of those, is he gonna read the room? You can't keep everyone they've got. We talked about them bringing in 2 new guards. He might just see it and say, yeah, I got to go someplace else to get playing time. I wonder though if he's talking to his friend Lino Mark's leaving, he can slide into that role as a developmental guy there. So I don't know, 50-50. I want to go for him, $400 grand. What do you think?
Well, he'll play less than he did this year. Right. And when we say these things, at least I am assuming that Rutgers will be better, more talented next year than they were this year. Right. If they're not, then this whole conversation is out the window. But in that scenario, he will play less than he did this year. And if he comes back next year, it will be as a developmental player that Rutgers will hope to develop for his junior year to be a contributor and fulfill the potential offensively they feel they have with him. If he wants to play next year, and I think maybe the better move for his career might be going down a level to play more and work out his mistakes, work out his development at a lower level. Again, like an Atlantic 10 level, maybe the WAC closer to home or whatever. But if he does stay at Rutgers, it will be as a developmental player, 10 minutes off the bench, maybe a spark plug offensive guy or whatever. But I think clearly he'll have a lower role than this year. So I'll put it at 33% he's back. I know I said he was staying in my story this morning, but now that we talked it through, I'll probably put it at 35%.
You do some analysis. All right. Harun Zerno. I don't know. I didn't love his game. He could hit a shot sometimes, but there are some games he just looked lost out there a lot. I don't think they should spend money to keep him. He didn't come in and become this guy I think they thought he was going to be. I put the percentage on maybe 20. Yeah.
Well, I think he would want to come back. Right?
You do.
I think he would want to come back. I think Rutgers, it depends on whether they think he is worth a flyer. I think in the right role, if you put him around the perimeter and say, Harun, the only thing you are allowed to do is catch the ball and shoot. And if they can create an offense, which I know is, as we've talked about a lot.
Yes, we might have mentioned that on a couple of podcast episodes.
But if they can manufacture possessions where he can get open looks from three, and that is his only responsibility, I think he could be a positive piece for this team. And they would also have to find some defensive players that can hide him a little bit on the defensive end. Essentially, I think Rutgers has to become a much better team and find a specific role for him. And if they think they could do that with him, I think he'd be worthwhile coming back. He would come back for cheap, I think. But other than that, I put it at 50-50. I really don't. I think whether he comes back or not, to me, tells how they view the roster next season. Because I think he could be a 3-point shooter if in the right scenario, but I don't know if they'll be able to do it.
Right. Agreed totally. All right. Then, this is a funny one. JaMychal Davis is an interesting case because I'd like to have him back as an experienced guy, as, Steve Peichel can have someone to hand some flowers and a jersey to on senior day. I think he's the kind of guy you'd want to come back. I don't he's a useful player at times, a good defensive player. You could throw him out there. He's been through the wars. You won't be intimidated by this. But you can't pay him and you can't guarantee him playing time.
The sentimental value is the biggest part here, right? I think
is it sentimental or is there some usefulness there?
Well, it's having a 4-year player, a 4th-year senior. I think there is sentimental value there that should not be overlooked. Right. Now, he's gotten better as a 3-point shooter and as a free throw shooter. The numbers are clear. He still can't get within 5 feet of the rim without getting blocked. Right, that's never going to change. He is what he is size wise, right? So that's a big detriment to his game. Defensively, I disagree. I mean, I think he's sneaky with some steals and he can do some effort plays, but again, he's 5'11" and
he had 6 steals against Maryland. Only 5 of them the ball was thrown directly at him. Keep that in mind.
Right, but again, that's the kind of defense he can play. But the other possessions where he's not turning the ball over, he's he's at a huge size disadvantage, and that hurts. You could have one guy like that on your rotation. You can't have 2 or 3 of them like they had this year. So that's why I think it would not be great for Rutgers to bring him back. And the other thing is we're starting to climb up on the number of guys coming back. There are only 15 spots on the roster, right? You got to leave spots open for people to come in. So I think for him, he's going to be a senior. He has one last year of college basketball. Why not go closer to home? I mean, Chattanooga, I don't know what their situation is, but that would make a lot of sense. Play at a lower level. He's a good player that can play 30 minutes at a mid-major because he's not going to do that at Rutgers. If he stays at Rutgers, at best he'll play 10 minutes a game.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, I think it's likely he leaves for those reasons. His answer for a guy who's been around was pretty non-committal. I would put it at a low percentage that he's back on the roster. I feel the same way about Chris Woolley for the opposite reason. He's a guy back in the day, you were like, this kid's really talented. By the time he's a junior, senior, he's going to be an important part of it. He's going to be a 12-minute a game guy. Those days are done. So you just can't develop, and you just, either you show it your first year and, you get paid or you're gone. So, I mean, I think he is I put it at 10, 15% he's back.
I would agree, maybe even go a little lower for multiple reasons. One, history shows that he just doesn't stay at places too long. 4 high schools in 4 years.
Yep.
He's from across the country. He's from Las Vegas. And it's one thing to see the potential, and I think there is some there physically, and you could kind of see it, but he just played so out of control, and it was a lot more bad than there was like reasons for hope there. So I just think that it'd be better for both sides to move on. It doesn't make sense to hold a roster spot for him because I don't think he's a year away from being a contributor. I think he's at least 2 years away from approaching the potential he has.
Manny Obole. It's funny because I think until you wrote this, but until the press conference when Steve Pikiell basically gave him a kiss and said, "Have a nice journey, my friend." I thought he'd be back. I figured he's getting another year. Rutgers is not going to find 2 centers in the portal. And I went and looked. I spent some time looking at this guy. I was just curious, what were the big centers in last year at this time who moved? There weren't a lot of them. It wasn't like there's kid went to Kentucky, Maryland, got the kid who got hurt. There's some in there that moved, they paid for at a high level, but it was a hard place to find a player. And that's what Rutgers is looking at now. You're going to have to dedicate that's $10 million. 2 is for your center easily. If it's going to be a starting Big Ten level starting center, you're going to pay $2 million or more to make that happen. That's it. And I'm not sure that, and even then, I'm not sure they're going to I don't know what they're going to find. And it's just the reality of it. You can't predict who's going to be on the market, but go take the best centers right now. Come up with a list of the 5 best centers at a level you think they will be in the portal. And they're going to Kentucky, Florida. They just forget it. Just cross them off the board. North Carolina, they're going to get, it's it. It's going to be fascinating to see what they've scouted in that room. The Rob Sullivan, this is going to be his biggest task here to figure out who that guy's going to be. Not going to be Manny.
Yeah, I thought Manny. I thought Steve really liked Manny, and he would find a reason to bring him back for 10 years if he does get the waiver. But Steve, essentially, to your point, I was shocked at how clear he was in his opening statement. He wasn't asked about Manny. In his opening statement, he waxed poetic about Manny and essentially said, "Thanks for your service, but go get a job, pal." That's essentially what he told him. Now, I agree across the board. Rutgers will not get any of the elite players. Rutgers will probably not get any of the second-tier players, right? That's just the reality. So setting those expectations, Rutgers
at that position especially.
At all positions.
No.
Rutgers is not getting an elite point guard. It's not happening. I just Nick Boyd.
It depends how many you're classifying as. I agree. Elite is like a half dozen players. The next level guy, at a certain point, money is the most important thing here. And if they really do have as much money as we think if they're playing the $10 million pool, and if that really is, and I don't know, we think it is, going to put them into the top 6, 7, 8 of the Big Ten? No?
Middle.
In the middle of the Big Ten?
Probably.
Yeah.
And that's probably the
key.
The highest.
Right. The key is the key is using that money on the free agents. It's just making sure you're not just doling it out to JaMychal Davis again, making sure that you are, this is not a meritocracy. You've got to get players. And if someone on this roster thinks they're being underpaid, all right. I think that's the key. But
we're talking here about getting really good players at the 2 biggest positions, point guard and center, right? And I just think Rutgers goes $5 million for point guard and $5 million for center, right? They're going to have to. Right. They're no longer shopping in the bargain bin, right? Obviously, we agree there. I don't think they're at a level where they're going to shop in the top 25 at any position. I think even top 30, top whatever. But they're going to try to have to get the best of the above average players. That's the market they're going to be working in, and they're going to have to hit, because when you're not at the elite players, there is always a chance that an above average player elsewhere doesn't exactly fit there. But they're going to have to do their homework and scouting there. Anyway, to get back to the point on Manny, he is not coming back. I think Rutgers is going to have to get a really good center, and I think you don't have to pay $1 million for an equivalent to Emmanuel Bole. There is a backup center out there somewhere you could pay $600 to $750, and again, these numbers we're just throwing out of our wazoo. But you could pay center that's not a starter, not terrible amount of money that can give you more than Emmanuel Bully gave you. Because as much as he's gotten better the last couple games, as good as his defensive numbers are, just remember what it was like to watch him for a 31-game season. And I mean, sometimes I can't believe I still have hair because
it was the worst center situation in Power 5, 4, whatever you want to call it, 2 high major basketball. Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
for most of the year.
To finish that point, then by fall we agree.
Everybody, I think anybody else, Bryce Dorich, Dennis Badalau, I think they're all. I think that's just at this point we're just, holding the door open. If you want to stay, we have a spot in the bench, but we just, we can't afford you. Sorry, that kind of deal.
Well, they'd be taking up scholarships on the bench too, right? That's the other thing.
I think at this point you're not. I mean, what are we talking about here? Because you're also not going to bring in. You're not going to bring in 7 guys.
I think you have to bring in 7, 8 guys.
7, 8 guys? You think you're going to bring? You're going to find. You're not going to spend for 7, 8 guys.
Okay, over under 5.5 new players from the portal.
Under, yeah.
Under 5.5?
Yeah, under. Absolutely.
A majority of this year's team will be back next season.
Well, are there freshmen coming in?
There's 1 freshman.
1 freshman coming in. Okay, yes. So that's 1. Yeah, I don't. I mean. It's right at 5 or 6. I don't know. Let's go through it. You're Tariq, Darren, Lino, or Powers, right? One of those guys, you say. So what's that? Was that 4?
It's 3.
That's 3. All right. Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, maybe you're right. Yeah. Because 7 is a lot of guys to bring in, man.
Yes, but you also can't bring back 8, 9 guys.
But you're not going to pay. You're not paying 7 guys. Maybe you're bringing in guys.
All I'm saying is this team went 14-19. You cannot bring back a majority of the roster. I don't care if you get Kareem Abdul-Jabbar at center and
I'm not saying majority of the roster. I'm saying 5 or 6 guys. I think that's definitely going to be the case. You're not going to play. This is the days. You're not going to play 12 guys. You're going to have 7 guys you can play. 8.
So you think they'll have a 9 to 10 man rotation?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Okay, that's fair. Another player we didn't think about, which I didn't get clarity on, is Dorian Jones, redshirted this year because of academic issues. And I asked Steve Peichel about it, and he said he still doesn't have an update on whether he'd be eligible or not next season. Right. But that's kind of a wild card there. But yeah, I guess we don't have to count it.
That's a Hail Mary. Yeah, I think he's that would be a surprise. But yeah, okay.
Okay, so they're not going to replace their entire starting 5, you think, right? In the best case scenario, how many starters? 3 out of the portal.
How many starters out of the portal? 3. Absolutely. Center, point guard, and a scoring wing is what you need to get out of the portal. In that order. You'd put Tariq Francis as one of the starters. Tariq Francis. Darren Buchanan. Darren Buchanan, probably. Yeah, that's possible. Or somebody. Yeah. Yep.
I think your scenario is probably the most likely, right? Again, I think if you're able to replace your entire starting lineup with better players, it would be the ideal scenario. Obviously, sometimes the ideal scenario doesn't happen. But I think if Rutgers wants to be better, now here's the other thing, and I've thought about this a bit. Like, what should the expectation be? Obviously, it's to be better. It's hard to be worse than this year's team, right? Does this team have to be an NCAA tournament team? Does it have to be at the bubble? Does it just have to be playing meaningful games in February? Like, what is the aspiration? And then we can compare what the aspiration is with what they have to do in the portal to reach that aspiration.
Right. That is a good point. And I think it is in the NCAA, seriously in the NCAA conversation. That's what I think it is. You haven't made the tournament in 3 years. You haven't sniffed it the last couple. I think you need to be. We're sitting here in late February, and we're like, all right, this team's got a real good chance. I don't think we're like, this is not a situation where they're going to have to, be in the top 4. This is not something like, they're not spending at a level where this team's got to, contend for the Big Ten title. They're still way behind what Michigan spending, still miles behind whatever Tom Izzo is going to be able to do. Yeah, but you've got to be in the conversation. That's what I would say. Does that make sense to you?
Yes. You're saying essentially we're going to enter the Big Ten tournament next year, and we're saying to ourselves, Rutgers might not have to win a game or 2.
Yes.
But if some things happen here, other things happen in tournaments, and
Yep.
You're there. Rutgers goes into selection Sunday with an outside shot. That's the bare minimum.
And the reason, and one of the reasons we not, it's because Kelly's in will still not want to fire Steve Peichel. So they're still going to be, I still think they're going to be looking for a reason to say, hey, look, probably overachieved with 7 wins last year. He's got 10 wins in the Big Ten this year. I know it's still still the crown, but that's I think there is a scenario where the bar is still not very high, I think, for Steve Peichel coming back at the end of next year.
Yes, I do agree with you that they will want to bring him back.
Yeah.
Right. They will want every reason to bring him back, because if it has to get really bad to eat $16 million over the next 4 years, of course. Right. And we understand, to be clear, it's not a lump sum payment. I've seen some people push back, like when we bring up the $16 million. I know it's $4 million every year, but that's $4 million every year you're spending to have a guy not coach your team. And it's not like Steve Peichel, after getting fired at Rutgers, would be able to just find another job in the Power 5 or in the high major basketball that will pay him similar to that, right?
Yes.
So they're going to be on the hook for that. So they're not going to want to be on the hook for that. They're going to root like crazy for Steve Peichel to take this team back to the NCAA tournament, or at least be in the conversation. Now, if you want to be an NCAA tournament team next year, you have to replace the entire starting 5. At the very least 4 players. You have to. And you have to get significantly better players. That's the reality.
Yeah. And I will say this, and this is the thing that would scare me the most if I were Kelly's in, is that you're going to spend $10 million and you'd be sitting here next year in the same record. And I think it's it's possible. Definitely possible. Because that's the thing, because you don't know if you're going to be able to get what you're going to get as a center. You don't know what you're going to get at some of these positions. You could get a guy that get hurt. If they don't meet the expectations, you may pay $2 million for a center and not be certain that that's going to be like the high level play. The portal is tough. It's free agency. It's like free agency in the NFL. It really is. It's it could be hit or miss. And I think that's what that is the doomsday scenario, is for them to be sitting here at the same record and facing that buyout, and the realization that fans at that point would be like, done. Because I do think I think we've seen it. I think more fans than we're giving credit for want to give Steve Peichel the benefit of the doubt and want to believe that all of the problems from this team have been roster management and not his coaching and not his program building and not all the other things that, a fair number of people on our Discord are convinced of the problem. And, I think you and I think there's obviously part of the problem, but I don't know that a lot of people, I think there's a lot of people in the fan base who are like, yeah, Steve can get it done. We just got to give him the money, the resources.
Here is the thing. Next season will be the proof of that, right? Mm-hmm. No longer will there be the lack of administrative support. No longer will there be the lack of the general manager leaving Steve Peichel to make all the calls and evaluate all the money and look at the players and do all the other things that Rob Sullivan is doing. He has the help from a GM. He has the money behind him, and he will have to make his primary objective here, picking out the players, coaching them, and making them a good team next year. My point being, next year, there's no one else to blame if things go off the rails other than Steve Peichel. Right? So this will be a true prove-it season for Steve Peichel and his staff. And to your point, I don't think Rutgers has to make the tournament for Steve Peichel to keep his job beyond the season. And I know that will anger some people, make some other people very happy. But I think that they desperately want him to show progress, be in the hunt, and unless things get really bad, right? Like they have the same exact season as this year, I think they're going to want to lean to bring him back, much like Pitt brought back Jeff Capel. It's a lot of money to eat, and they're not going to want to do it.
Yep. All right. Good roster breakdown. Let's see what they come up with. Give them some time to go in the portal. Let's move on to other things, though. I think we should jump into a few football developments, one women's basketball development. No spring game. God. That was I'm not a surprise, actually. I shouldn't say that. I guess it was a surprise because I just hadn't thought about it, but I think that's a trend you're seeing across the country. Greg Schiano said it's not good for our program. We're not the best for our program. I know exactly what his phraseology was.
It's not in the best interest of the
best
program.
interest of the program. Yes. And yeah, I mean, disappointing. I think for fans, it's a nice opportunity to get together. You see some of these young players, give you a taste. It's a long time to go from particularly when you go 5-7. The last game was in late November, Thanksgiving. Now you're waiting until August, end of August after summer vacation. for me, the spring game is just a good chance to, oh yeah, I forgot. Well, yeah, it's not like it's evaluation or anything like that. Then we've had some fun players kind of flash. You see little guys who give you a little hope, give you something to think about. But no, another happy tradition of college sports gone into the toilet because of where we are.
Yes, and I do think it's rough for fans, right? Because they want to have an opportunity to get back to the stadium and tailgate and see players and read into one practice and all that fun stuff that we do in the offseason to pass the time. From the Rutgers perspective, it makes sense. Last season, they lost a player they thought would have a decent role in Fama Toure to a knee injury in the spring game, right? So I think obviously a player can get injured in any of the 15 spring practices, but not having a game maybe will take away some of that risk. The portal is no longer an issue, right? There was a thought before this year that you have a spring game, some guy flashes, and suddenly kids are going to be tempted to go into the portal. There is no spring portal window. But and I think the other thing, to some degree, has to be because they have a quarterback competition. Last year, the entirety of college football was canceling their spring game. Greg Schiano didn't. He raved about how the spring game is this wonderful tradition in college sports. He loves it so much.
He did.
He waxed poetic about it, much like maybe that was a precursor. The way Steve Peichel waxed poetic about Emmanuel Bole, Greg Schiano waxed poetic about the spring game before putting the kibosh on it. But the point being, what was this? So last year he waxed poetic about it, and now this year, and they didn't have a quarterback competition last year. This year, when there is the most legit quarterback competition they've had since Gavin Wimsatt against Ethan Kaliakmanis, where it really could go either way, 50-50. They're not letting anybody outside of the Hale Center get a whiff of how those guys look in the spring, and we won't hear anything about them until August 29th or whatever.
Right. Yep. Pretty much. Yeah. That's exactly what happened. You've nailed it. Which is funny. So it'll be something. We'll just talk. We'll just talk wildly about it for 6 months until we get to the first game. The other development of football is a really good one. Mike Sullivan, very experienced coach, NFL coach for the Giants. Good dude. Becoming an offensive assistant. I guess he didn't coach last year. Still has a house in Jersey. Just just a really really good move. I like it a lot. And he's a guy I think that Greg Schiano can lean on, that Kirk Ciarrocca can lean on, that will be good for the quarterbacks. That's one of those little small tidbits that have come across to make you go, oh, huh. So good development. He's
filling the Pat Flaherty quota of two-time Super Bowl champion coaches for the Giants. Once Pat Flaherty left, he got on the horn and called Mike and said, come on, man, I got to fill this quota. And it makes sense because this is a underappreciated position maybe, where John Perry was there for a couple of years, John McNulty was there last year, and now Mike Sullivan will be in a position to work with the wide receivers and help Dave Brock turn that position group into the best, most consistent group on the roster for the past 3 years. Mm-hmm. It's good for KJ Duff once again to have experienced NFL coach helping him alongside with Dave Brock. So good hire. I mean, another sneaky good hire, I should say, for Greg Schiano and his coaching staff.
Yep. Tuesday, we will introduce Gary Redis II as women's basketball coach. A press conference. Behind the scenes, sounds like he's off to a good start by all accounts. Like, I think he's, I think what you're going to see here early on is him making some waves in the portal. And if you're a women's college basketball fan, I think there's going to be some encouraging news. I don't know, that the staff is set, but it certainly seems like he's going to hire one of his coaches from LSU. At least Kim Mulkey was preparing for that eventuality. Hire his sister, who's got head coaching experience at least in some level. Okay. So, I mean, and I think what is very likely here is that he is going to have an excellent portal. That's my prediction. And I think that's one of the reasons why he's coming early. Kim Mulkey let him come early. They're going to be ready for that when it opens on April 6th. Yeah, and we'll get our first impression of him and he is not quite Kim Mulkey with dressing, but the photos I've seen also quite sartorially accomplished. Is that the right use of that word? Looks nice.
I don't know. I can't wear the Kim Mulkey suits, obviously, but maybe I can finagle NJAM to pay for a Balenciaga sweater or something and really upgrade my wardrobe so I dress like Gary Redis at every game. But yeah, to your point, I think the Daphne Mitchell thing didn't occur to me that he would bring her from LSU as well until Kim Mulkey literally essentially telegraphed it in an interview, like brought it up without anyone asking her. She just kind of threw it out there. So I would take that to mean that it's at least a strong possibility. His sister would make a lot of sense as far as we said on the last pod, a head coach experience that would help out. And then there's a Tennessee assistant, Roman Tubner, who he's very close with. Like they played together in college. They're very close friends. And I would be shocked if he hasn't reached out to him, and I wouldn't be surprised if he went to the staff. And if he did, they have a couple of New Jersey twins. They do. Morris Catholic greats, the Paloma twins, I want to say.
Poldo, Mia and Maya Poldo. Yeah.
Yes.
And if you follow girls basketball, they're the kind of they're kids who had NIL money in high school. They're so talented. Played at Morris Catholic, elevated that program to levels that I had never seen before. I think in college, Mia's been great. Maya's just been okay. So one player is a legit level, like a high level player. Sister a little less so, but still could be a good role player. But yeah, I mean, as far as making a splash, bring back two of the most highly recruited players, twins. There'd be a lot of interest about that, I think. Obviously we've learned one thing we've learned about women's basketball is not you can't win with one player. I certainly have seen that with some of the recent years here. But it would be a good start.
Absolutely. If those three things come to fruition, Daphne Mitchell, his sister, and sorry, let me get his name so I don't botch it. Roman Tubner and the twins come in, that would be a great start. And he's getting ambitious as far as high school offers he's throwing out. He's offered 3 girls, I think, since coming here, and they're all elite players in the area. So he's throwing out. He has a reputation as an elite recruiter, and he's certainly throwing out darts and seeing what he could land.
Absolutely. So that would be good. Get our first impression of him on Tuesday. That's all I got. You got anything else?
No, I'm just exhausted from a very long week in Chicago. I'm excited for a little bit of downtime for the offseason, and it'll be an interesting few weeks to see what happens before the portal opens. I am sure there will be some activity because these conversations are happening before the portal opens. And then obviously we have spring football at the end of the month, and Graciano announced that it'll open March 27th. So we have spring football at the end of the month. We have basketball having a little bit of a lull before things turn up, and I will try to take some time off and let things cool off. I imagine you'll do the same.
Yes, do not know when we will be back. So listen to this one twice if you can. That's it for now. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back at you someday.
Thank you for listening to the Rutgers Rant, sponsored by the Heldrich Hotel. Head to nj.com/Rutgers for more Scarlet Knight content.